إلى أرواح المؤمنين وموتى الحاضرين، من مات على الإيمان، من مات على ولاية أمير المؤمنين، إلى أرواح مراجعنا العظام، لا سيما السيد الإمام روح الله الموسوي الخميني قدس سره الشريف، إلى أرواح شهدائنا شهداء الإسلام، شهداء الدفاع المقدس، شهداء على طريق القدس، لا سيما سيدي شهداء هذه الأمة. رحم الله من قرأ السورة المباركة الفاتحة مسبوقة بالصلاة على محمد وآل محمد. أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. Can we put the echo down a little bit? أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. وأفضل الصلاة وأتم التسليم على المبعوث رحمة للعالمين، حبيب قلوبنا وطبيب نفوسنا، سيدنا ومولانا أبا القاسم محمد عليه وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين، لا سيما بقية الله في الأراضين، الروح وأرواح العالمين لتراب مقدمه الفدا، واللعنة الدائمة على أعدائهم أجمعين منذ آدم إلى قيام يوم الدين. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. أعظم الله أجورنا وأجوركم بمصابنا بأمير المؤمنين علي بن أبي طالب عليه الصلاة والسلام. قال تعالى في محكم التنزيل بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم: يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا يسخر قوم منكم قوم عسى أن يكون خيرا منهم، ولا نساء من نساء عسى أن يكن خيرا منهن، ولا تلمزوا أنفسكم ولا تنابزوا بالألقاب، بئس الاسم الفسوق بعد الإيمان، ومن لم يتب فأولئك هم الظالمون. Allah Azza wa Jal says in the Holy Quran, O you who believe, let not one people laugh at another people, perchance they may be better than they, nor let women laugh at other women, perchance they may be better than they. And do not find fault with your own people, nor call one another by nicknames. Evil is a bad name after faith, and whoever does not turn and repent, these it is that are the unjust. Sadaqallahu al-Aliyyul Azim. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. This verse that we just mentioned, in the first part of the verse at least, Allah Azza wa Jal is giving a clear order to the believers. He is saying to them that let not a group of you think that they are better than others, nor let a group of your women think that they are better than others, lest the other group be better than you. Allah Azza wa Jal, He is addressing at that time, and it's very applicable to our times, is addressing a culture of racial prejudice and racism which existed within Arab society at the time. Quraysh, at the time of the Holy Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the Arabs in general, were very tribal people, to the point where they viewed one another as either superior or inferior depending on which clan or tribe you belong to. Even though they belonged to the same race, even though they were all Arabs, but they disliked one another and they gave preference to their own tribes over the others. This tribal prejudice, which our narrations refer to as asabiyya, was one of the core diseases rotting society at the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And it was one of the main obstacles in the spreading of Islam. In a society where tribes viewed themselves better than other tribes, when Arabs viewed themselves better than other Arabs, it was almost impossible for them to fathom or to accept a culture or a religion which said to them that your African slave is your equal. In fact, one of the comments that Abu Sufyan makes in the beginning when he refuses Islam is that how can it be that this Muhammad wants to make me, Abu Sufyan, equal with Bilal? Bilal al-Habashi, Bilal who was an African slave. Islam comes to unify mankind, to unify them under one banner and one banner only. And that is the banner of La ilaha illallah. Everything else becomes zero. Everything else is useless in the eyes of Allah Azza wa Jal. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commands for us to testify to His oneness, when Allah Azza wa Jal gives us this formula, which is a condition of entry into His religion, He, Jalla Jalalu, makes it an obligation out of His wisdom, and it's a deliberate act out of His wisdom, that He begins the testimony of faith by us relinquishing all other gods. We don't start our testimony of faith by testifying to the oneness of Allah Azza wa Jal. This is not how our tashahhud begins. Our tashahhud begins by relinquishing all other gods. La ilaha. We need to empty our cups. We need to strip ourselves of every other identity. We need to strip ourselves of every other ism. We need to strip ourselves of every other intima, every other affiliation. And then we come, because with Allah Azza wa Jal, you cannot have Allah Azza wa Jal in your heart along with someone else. Everything else apart from Allah Azza wa Jal is najis. It's impurity. So in order to welcome Allah Azza wa Jal in your heart, Allah Azza wa Jal says first cleanse your heart, purify it, rid it of everything else but me. Identify with nothing else but me. Nothing else must be your priority but me. هذه أمتكم أمة واحدة وأنا ربكم فاعبدون. This nation of yours is one nation, and I am your God, so worship me. And this comes not only in response to the tribalism and the racism which was rampant in Arabia, but it also comes in response to this racial superiority of the Jews at the time, who made religion a nationalist movement, as we see it today, a fascist nationalist movement. That if you are not born of a mother who is a daughter of Jacob, then you are not worthy of Allah Azza wa Jal, and you are not worthy of His blessings, and you are not worthy to be welcomed into His kingdom. In fact, you are not even a human. According to the Talmud, we are not human beings because we're Gentiles. We only look like human beings so that the Jew is not disgusted when we serve him at the table. This is a teaching which is rampant today in Judaism. And this came in response to this. A few narrations about this asabiyya, inshallah, and then we have some practical implications. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. This is a famous narration. قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله من كان في قلبه حبة من خردل من عصبية بعثه الله يوم القيامة مع أعراب الجاهلية. The one who has, the Holy Messenger is saying صلى الله عليه وآله, the one who has in his heart the size of a mustard seed of racial prejudice, a mustard seed, Allah Azza wa Jal will resurrect him on the day of judgment with the Arabs of Jahiliyyah. Meaning, your salat, your psalm, your Muslim appearance, all of this, you assuming you died on the religion of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alih. All of a sudden on the day of judgment, you are risen with Abu Jahl. You are risen with those who would dance naked around the Kaaba, who worshipped over 300 gods, who ate their gods because they had gods made out of dates, those who buried their daughters alive in the sands. These are the people you will be raised with on the day of judgment. Rasulullah is saying. There is no room for this in Islam at all. Look at this next narration. This narration is attributed to Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam. من تعصب أو تعصب له فقد خلع ربق الإيمان من عنقه. The one who has this racial prejudice or calls on others to have this prejudice towards him, meaning he calls others to only follow him and only people who are like him he accepts, religion is ripped, the necklace of religion is ripped from him, meaning he has been stripped of his Islam and his Iman. And another narration. لم يدخل الجنة حمية غير حمية حمزة بن عبد المطلب وذلك حين أسلم غضبا للنبي صلى الله عليه وآله. Here Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam is talking about Hamiyya. Hamiyya is this fiery jealousy that you have based on racial prejudice, right? Like when you see someone from your own background being attacked because he's from the same country or same culture as you, you jump in. The Imam alayhi salam is saying no one enters Jannah that has this Hamiyya except for Hamza bin Abdul Muttalib, because this is what causes Hamza bin Abdul Muttalib to enter Islam. He enters Islam out of love for his nephew. Out of love for his nephew, the narration is saying this is the only exception to Hamiyya. Other than that, there's no entry into Jannah. We see from the bulk of our narrations, our Imams and the Holy Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they're saying to us that this attitude of racism, this attitude of racial prejudice and racial preference, this removes you from the fold of Islam simply because it is conflicting with the statement of La ilaha illallah. Because it contradicts this concept of La ilaha illallah, which is the cornerstone of our religion. The Holy Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa alih, as we said earlier, one of the biggest hurdles in spreading Islam was this racial prejudice that the tribes of Arabia were warring tribes. And he had the mission of uniting them under this one banner, that neither of you is better than the other. And that in Islam, the measuring stick is at taqwa. Inna akramakum indallahi atqakum. Those of you who are most dignified with Allah Azza wa Jal are those who are the most pious. It is your piety which creates your standing with Allah Azza wa Jal. Islam was so far ahead of its time when it came to racial equality that this Arab messenger, sallallahu alayhi wa alihi, who comes from one of the most racist of societies. I always say this to the brothers. I think I've said this here before. Do not think that Allah Azza wa Jal, out of love For the Arabs, he chooses Muhammad ibn Abdullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi as his final messenger from the Arabs. This wasn't the case. The Quran tells us this wasn't the case. In fact, they were the most wretched of people. وَكُنْتُمْ عَلَى شَفَا حُفْرَةٍ مِّنَ النَّارِ. Allah Azza wa Jal says regarding the Arabs, you were on the edge of the pits of hell until I sent my messenger to save you. It's not because the Arabs were the best of races that Allah Azza wa Jal elects his final messenger from amongst them. In fact, it's because they were the worst of people. And I'm telling you this as an Arab, the son of an Arab mother and Arab father, I can almost guarantee you, had Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi not been an Arab, the Arabs of the time would not have accepted him. They would have rejected him. And they would have fought him. They fought him because he was from a different tribe. Because he was from Hashim, they fought him. They fought Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam because they could not fathom An-Nubuwwa li Hashim wal Khilafa li Hashim. Prophethood and Khilafah, both of them for Banu Hashim. La wallah. So they fought Ali alayhi salam. So imagine if the Holy Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa alihi was not even an Arab. Altogether, they would have rejected him. And this is how easy faith is accepted or rejected if racial prejudice is present in your heart. When you begin to prefer your race to others. Islam comes to break this vile and disgusting trait. When the non-Islamic world was built on this, and racial prejudice and racial vilification and racial-based genocide was rampant in the West, from the establishment of the Roman Empire all the way up until our modern era today, 1400 years ago, Islam was fighting this. Let me ask you a question. How old is the Roman Catholic Church? Anyone know how old? How old is it? You can guess. Yes, you can. 292. That's a very specific guess. The Roman Catholic Church is over 2,000 years old. Over 2,000 years old. 2,000 years old, and they are yet to present to us one non-European Pope. In the tens and the hundreds of millions, in fact billions of Catholics all over the world, every few years when their Pope dies, they have a conclave. And they gather the bishops in order to elect a Pope. In 2,000 years, they have not elected one non-white European Pope. Can you imagine a black Pope leading the Catholic world? An Indian Pope leading the Catholic, a Filipino Pope leading the Catholic world? It's impossible. This racism is entrenched within them. This systematic racism is entrenched. The British Empire. It's a funny thing, this British Empire. This Canada is a result of this British Empire. Where I'm from, Australia, is a result of this British Empire. In the name of God, in the name of Christ, in the name of the Bible, they conquered and colonized and butchered and murdered and massacred the Third World, which they named the Third World, simply because they did not look like them. Even when they were of the same religion. In Africa, one of the oldest Christian churches in the world exists in Ethiopia today. It is one of the most orthodox churches in the world. Yet, they massacred them, and they enslaved them, and they colonized them. Why? Because they're not the same color as them. In fact, The British Empire, when they saw the diversification of the Roman Catholic Church, and they saw that many people of different colors and ethnicities had entered this church, you know what they did? In the name of God and in the name of Christ and then in the name of the Bible and the church, they established the Church of England. Who's heard of the Church of England here? The Church of England. Who's the head of the Church of England? The British monarch. They replaced Jesus. Today, in Catholic doctrine, if you ask them who the head of the church is, in Roman Catholic tradition, or even the Orthodox Church, they will say to you, Christ is the head of this church. However, the Pope, whether it be the Catholic Pontiff, the Holy See, or the Orthodox Pope, they will tell you Christ is the head of this church. The Church of England, the head of the church is the Holy Monarch, the King or Queen. This King Charles of ours here, is Hujjatullah ala khalqi. You're laughing, but he is, according to them. He is the representative of God on earth. Our war with these people is not a political war. Our war with these people is a religious war. In Australia, under the name of Christ and under the banner of Christianity, they massacred the indigenous Aboriginal people in the most horrendous of ways, to the extent that we actually had a law, we had a legislation in Australia up until the 1950s, not too long ago. It was called the White Australia Policy. Please go and research it. That the color of Australia is white. They took our indigenous populations, and excuse me for this language, but this was a state policy. Today in Australia, when you go to Australia today, inshallah some of you will visit, you will find a blonde hair, blue-eyed girl, blonde hair, blue-eyed man who will identify as an Aboriginal Australian. You say, how are you Aboriginal? You look Swiss, you look Dutch. But it's a sad result of their history, because there was a policy in Australia where the government would, it's harsh to say, but they would literally rape the black out of their indigenous population to widen out future generations. And they would not allow indigenous Australians to marry one another. This is this West that we are talking about here, that we admire. This West that we hold up on such a high pedestal. This West which has presented itself as the flag bearer of human rights and equality. Up until the 1950s, the local population, the indigenous Australians, the Aborigines, were sent to zoos in Europe. Zoos. They would dress them up and put them in zoos in Belgium and in Stockholm and in the United Kingdom, so white kids could come and feed them and throw nuts at them. This is how they were treated. Who knows how many native Indians were killed in America? 140 million. 140 million. And they cry about a fabricated Holocaust of 6 million or so Jews. Fabricated numbers. I'm a Holocaust denier. But because they're of the same color. Over 100,000 children can be killed in Gaza, along with thousands others in the south of Lebanon and in Yemen. And this West will not bat an eyelid. But when it came to Ukraine, because they're of the same color, because they're of the same religion, the entire world stood with them. Countries went bankrupt funding this war. Bankrupt. Go to England today. There's no meat in the markets in England. Meat. They can't afford to buy meat in England because of the billions of dollars they spent on this Ukrainian war machine. All the while, 1400 years ago, Al-Hussein alayhi salam on the plains of Karbala has a soldier who is today remembered forever. And when we do the ziyarah of Al-Hussein alayhi salam, it includes him. When we say وَعَلَىٰ أَصْحَابِ الْحُسَيْنِ alayhi salam, and he is venerated and buried in Karbala, where hundreds of millions of people visit him every day on the plains of Karbala. John, who was a black slave, falls in battle and calls out to his master, Ya Aba Abdullah, adrikni. Al-Hussein alayhi salam comes running to him the same way he comes running to Ali al-Akbar alayhi salam. And he places his cheek on the cheek of John. Hujjatullah ala khalqi. Ibn al-Zahra alayhi salam places his cheek on the cheeks of this African slave. And John is shocked. Man mithli. Who is like me? The son of Fatima placing his cheeks on my cheeks. We need to be very careful, brothers and sisters. If we are going to be amongst those who aim to preserve the religion of Al-Muhammad alayhim salam, and if we aim to be amongst those who are laying down the frameworks and the foundations for the government of Al-Muhammad and the government of Qa'im Al-Muhammad Ajjarallahu ta'ala farajahu al-Sharif, we need to eliminate this vile and disgusting and satanic trait. We need to eliminate it from our hearts. It must vanish. This asabiyya must go. Some of us might sit here and say, but I'm not a racist. I'm not a racist. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Because racism, it creeps into our hearts in the most satanic of ways. It is in fact a satanic characteristic. This prejudice is which causes the downfall of Iblis. What's Iblis's problem with Allah Azza wa Jal? خلقتني من نار وخلقته من طين. You made me from fire and you made him from clay. And fire is better than clay. And white is better than black. And Arab is better than Ajami. It's the same concept. It's exactly the same. And it gets worse than this, you know. And this happens across all cultures. But so I don't offend any of the cultures, I'll speak about my own culture. Arabs in general. Arabs were still racist towards one another. We don't allow cross-boundary or cross-border marriages. Like even in the same country sometimes, we don't allow cross-village marriages. And I'll tell you even more than this, in some villages, cross-family marriages are not allowed. Wallah, I'm being very serious. Until today. Until today. Look at the dangers of this thought, and also, if everyone can forgive me, look at the stupidity we have fallen in. The enemies of Allah, in their plots, and specifically the two great Satans of that time, and they're still Satans until today, La'natullahi alayhim, the French and the British. The French and the British. They take the Muslim world and they cover up, right? Two men, one British fella named Sykes and one French guy named Pico. They sit in an office in London with a map and a pencil and a ruler. And they divide up the Muslim world. They draw a line here and they say, this is now Palestine and this is now Lebanon. And this is now Syria, and this is now Iraq, and this is now Kuwait. They drew these lines up. They gave us these identities. They gave us these flags. They gave us these nationalities. And then what did we do? When the colonizer left, when the British left, when the French left, what did we do? We held on to the identity which they gave us, and we held on to it proudly. I am better than him. Ya Ammi, yesterday you were the exact same race. You were the exact same people. You have relatives, family members who ended up on a different side of the border. Not even 80 years ago. Same last names. You look the same. You have the same language. Your enemy, the one who massacred you and killed and pillaged your lands, your enemy drew these lines. And now you identify by them? And now you're proud of this identity? The colonizer left, but your mind is still colonized. He physically left, but your mind is still colonized. And we passed on this colonization to our children, generation after generation. That we applied it to our religion. And we went and we opened up the Lebanese Masjid, and the Iraqi Husseiniya, and the Khoja Center, and the Pakistani Imam Bargha, and. And where is Islam? Where is Islam? In all of this, where is Islam? My Pakistani and Indian brothers, your ancestors came to Islam, but unfortunately they carried with them the caste system of India. You carried the caste system. And some of you tried to have an Islamification of it. Sayyid, non-Sayyid. Sayyid, non-Sayyid. Subhanallah, forgive me, brothers. I have never met a who is Pakistani here that is not a Sayyid? You're not a Sayyid? Are you sure you're not a Sayyid? I've never met a Pakistani non-Sayyid. They're all Sada. Alhamdulillah. All of them are Sada. But Sayyids and non-Sayyids, it used to be. Inshallah, it's not the case. They can't marry. They can't marry one another. Why? Who said this? It became almost haram. Hukum shar'i. Even today, here in the West today, we still carry on this process. I remember a few years ago, astaghfirullah, I was in a community out in the West. I won't mention the community. And a sister came up to me. She said to me, Shaykh, there is a convert brother who has asked for my hand in marriage. And he's a good brother. He's God-fearing. He prays. He's well established. He has a good job. He's educated. I like him and he likes me. I said, what's the problem? She says, my father won't accept him because he's of African descent. I said to her, okay, what do you want for me to do? She said to me, I need you to talk to my dad. And I hate this, yeah, because the old Lebanese dads, sometimes they can be difficult with me. I said to her, that's fine, I'll talk to him. So I go and I sit down and I speak to her father. And I'm telling him, Hajj, your daughter is an established woman. MashaAllah. Allah Azza wa Jal has given her looks. He's given her an education and a brain and religion, and she's very pious. And she's found this brother, and this brother is also pious. He's God-fearing. I've sat with him. I know him. What is the problem? And he said to me in Arabic, it was very bad, yeah. He said to me, you want me to have black grandchildren? He said this. This is a religious person, yeah. He says, do you want me to have black grandchildren? Do you want my village to make me a mockery and say Hajj Fulan has black grandchildren? I said to him, Hajj, you have a big problem with Imam al-Zaman alayhi salam. Big problem. شو خاص إمام الزمان بالموضوع? What's Imam al-Zaman got to do with this? Say, Hajj, according to our narrations, the Imam alayhi salam has 4 African grandmothers. 4. And there is a very high chance that the Imam salamullahi alayhi is off color. Imam al-Zaman Zinji? Imam al-Mahdi is black? I said, maybe. If not black, Yamil ila samar, our narrations say. He is darker than the usual Arab. Are you going to accept this Imam? Would you accept a black Imam? Would you accept a Chinese Imam, an Asian looking Imam, if that's how he looked? Or are we so dedicated and devoted to our racial and ethnic ties that it has blinded us? One of the miracles of the Islamic Republic, and one of, may Allah Azza wa Jal elevate his soul, amongst the saints and the esteemed angels of Allah Azza wa Jal, Al-Hajj Qasim Sulaiman. If we can have a salawat for his soul, please. Being a student of Sayyid al-Imam al-Khomeini, Hajj Qasim breaks this mold in Tashayyu' when he raised an army of Muwalin who were Lebanese, Iraqi, Pakistani, Afghani, Palestinian. He raised this army and they all bled red. All of them, when you cut them, they bleed red. And they all bleed the love of Allah Azza wa Jalla and His Holy Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi and the Holy Progeny alayhum as-salam. And the establishment of this axis, this mihwar, which united the Bahraini and the Yemeni and the Palestinian and the Lebanese and the Syrian and the Iraqi and the Irani. United them under one banner, and that's the banner of Islam. If we do not begin to eradicate this vile culture within our communities today, then our religion becomes nothing more than culture. And our religion becomes our ethnic and racial backgrounds. This is what our religion becomes. And we do not resemble the government of Imam al-Zaman or Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam or Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa. We don't resemble it at all. The only companion amongst the companions of the Holy Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa, the only companion amongst them to be labeled as a member of Ahlul Bayt, Salman Minna Ahlul Bayt, was a non-Arab. He was a Ajami, a Persian. This sunnah of racism within Islam is a sunnah, pay attention to this, is a sunnah of the killer of Fatima alayhi salam, who made it a legislation in the Islamic government that if a non-Arab wants to marry an Arab woman, he must pay double the common mahar. When it came to Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam, they were not like this. Our Imams married Nubians and Ethiopians and Romans. Our Imams alayhim as-salam are multicultural. Our Imams alayhim as-salam are the embodiment and manifestation of La ilaha illallah. They shed every other identity. They did not care for any other identity. And this seeps, and I'll end with this racial prejudice, it seeps into our ahkam, into our culture. I mentioned it last night. Our culture starts to have precedence. Our culture starts to have preference over the law of Allah Azza wa Jal. Where I view my culture so superior that it is superior to Allah Azza wa Jal and superior to Islam. Where Islam comes and permits a thing and says to you, this is permissible, but because in my culture it is aib, it is inappropriate, it becomes more than haram. More than haram. Several acts that we do, several things that we do. We need to be very careful that we are not raised on the day of judgment from amongst the Jahiliyyah. We must make in our religion and in our actions and in our worldview and philosophy, Islam the only priority. We have no other thing. We have no other identity. We have no other ism. There is no room. The day I said La ilaha illallah, I said that I will abide by nothing else. I will identify by nothing else. I can't even identify or abide by any other philosophy or political thought. I can't be a communist Muslim, a socialist Muslim, like many of the Muslims were in the 70s and the 80s and the 60s. You had socialist Muslims. How? Capitalist Muslims, how? Arab nationalist Muslim, African nationalist Muslim, Indian national, all of this is shirk. Sayyid Imam al-Khomeini says nationalism is a form of shirk. We ask Allah Azza wa Jal to rid us of this disease. We ask Allah Azza wa Jal to cleanse our hearts of everything other than Him and make our identity, our sole identity, the identity of Islam, the identity of Muhammad wa al-Muhammad, so that we can come and resemble the government of Sahib al-Asr wa Zaman, the government of Muhammad wa ali Muhammad alayhim afdalus salatu was salam. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم واهلك عدوهم. اللهم إنا نرغب إليك في دولة كريمة تعز بها الإسلام وأهله وتذل بها النفاق وأهله، وتجعلنا فيها من الدعاة إلى طاعتك والقادة إلى سبيلك، وترزقنا بها كرامة الدنيا والآخرة بمحمد وعترته الطاهرة صلواتك عليه وعليهم أجمعين.